In the dynamic realm of modern communication, the practice of public relations is experiencing a remarkable evolution. With the advent of new technologies, shifting behaviors, and the relentless march of artificial intelligence, PR professionals are facing unprecedented challenges and opportunities. I'm Hilary Topper, and this is Hilary Topper on Air. Today, we have a special guest. His name is Jeff Morosoff, and he's an esteemed educator and PR practitioner. And he's the chair of the Department of Journalism, Media Studies, and Public Relations at Hofstra University. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
A pleasure to be here, Hilary.
So tell us a little bit about your background. You have such a diverse background. Can you take us through the entire process of when you graduated college? I mean, did you know that you wanted to be a PR professional?
No, not at all. Not one little bit. Although I will say I harbored a fantasy. I was always very interested in politics, and I harbored a fantasy of being the White House press secretary someday. But that was a little fantasy that just went away during college years. And I kind of fell into the college radio station there. I made a lot of friends and just essentially lived at the college radio station. This was at New York Institute of Technology in Old Westbury. And I decided to devote my career at that point to a radio career. Really just wanted to play music as a disc jockey. And sure enough, I was very fortunate. I got a job in between my sophomore and junior year on the air at an AM radio station on Long Island, and played music. Continued that after college, transitioned into news very briefly. And then, just out of real dumb luck, I bumped into a friend who was running the PR department or the public affairs department at a little company called Cablevision. It's now, of course, not called Cablevision anymore, but it was at the time the largest cable system in the country, the Long Island system. And this person was running the department and asked me if I'd like to come and work for her in their public relations division. And the money was very good. And I said, well, I'll do radio part-time and I'll be a PR guy for my full-time career. So that was approximately 40 years ago that I first started in public relations. Worked for Cablevision for a few years, then went to the Long Island Association, which is the region's largest business and civic organization. From there, I went into government. I worked for the town of Babylon. And there's where I came close to my fantasy. I became the spokesman for the town supervisor. So it wasn't quite the White House, but it was town hall. So it worked out well for me. And I did government PR for almost a decade. Then left that area. I freelanced for a while, but ended up working at New York Institute of Technology, my alma mater, where I was doing a combination of things, all kinds of development, alumni relations, fundraising, foundation relations, some PR as well, and government relations too. So I did that for the better part of 11 years. And while I was there, I got my master's degree and started teaching as an adjunct, started teaching PR as an adjunct at my alma mater. So long story short, after my tenure there was up, I spent a little time at Nassau Community College, running their PR and development office. And at that point, I went through my little midlife crisis when I was turning 50 and said, I really want to teach full time. And started looking around, and sure enough, I got very lucky because the school across the street from Nassau, Hofstra, was hiring a PR professor, and I got the job. So I've been here ever since. It's been almost 14 years now.
Wow.
Teaching public relations, and the last 4.5 years running the department as the chair. Also got in the middle of that, got to start a graduate program in public relations, of which you were an essential part of its formation and has been teaching in it ever since. So that's my whole resume in about 2.5 minutes.
So talk to us a little bit more about your role as the chair of the Department of Journalism, Media Studies, and Public Relations at Hofstra. Like, what exactly do you do there?
What is a chair anyway? Well, I was told
Yeah.
prior to taking this job that it's the worst job on any campus to be a department chair. And I often wondered why, and I always said, "Ah, that's silly. That's just somebody saying that because they're complaining." Well, I'll say it's probably not the worst job, but certainly one of the more complex jobs because you're really kind of in two worlds. And, for those of you who know the academic world, you know that there's always that division between the administration and the faculty. The administration, they're the ones who are making the big decisions and the big money decisions and all of that. And the faculty are just trying to, do what's best for the students. Well, sure enough, when you're a chair, you have one foot in each world. You're both administration and faculty, and you become the liaison between the two, between your faculty within the department, in my case, about 14 full-time professors and about 30 adjuncts, and the faculty, and I interact with everyone from the president of the college to more immediately to the dean of our school. So that's the framework of it. But what the real job is, helping students, because students will often have concerns, whether it's they've had a schedule problem, they're having trouble graduating, they need extra help in something, they have a complaint about some service they're receiving. Sometimes it's a dispute with a faculty member or with another student. So you do a lot of problem solving in a very micro environment. But at the same time, on the more macro level, you're also developing programs, new courses, new majors sometimes, helping professors gain the facilities that they need, whether it be just a larger classroom or a piece of equipment that happens to be expensive, and finding the money for that. So all of those pieces and more go into being the chair of a department.
So let's shift gears for a moment and let's talk about teaching public relations. How has it evolved through the years, especially with the rise of digital media, technology, and AI?
Well, it's funny you ask because I always tell students that when I started in PR in 1983, the most sophisticated piece of equipment in our office was a fax machine. And how marvelous was this machine that we could put a piece of paper on one end and it would come out the other end a few seconds later, rather than having to stuff envelopes to send out press releases. Well,
Mhm.
of course, that has changed monumentally. The digital revolution has, if any profession's been changed the most, it's been PR,
Mhm.
because you are really dependent on the digital media because that is really where everybody's communicating. And the fact is, um, sending a press release out now is simply sending an email with the same type of copy in it, but it's sending an email. Then so it's the speed of it, first of all, and the ability to find media contacts instantly. You subscribe to a service and look for a reporter who happens to be reporting on a particular topic in a particular region, and boom, you get a list of who they are, their contact information, the articles they've written, the shows they've produced, those kinds of things. But then now, as you go into 2024 and the future, we've got AI to deal with, and we're finding that the industry has changed so rapidly, so much so that PR agencies that have been polled by national organizations like the PRSA, the Public Relations Society of America, they're finding that 75% of PR agencies are using AI to write press releases, to pitch clients, and that sort of thing. So it's fundamentally changing the work once again, changing in that we have to adapt to it. And that's really the answer to the first part of your question. How do you teach PR? You have to teach students how to adapt to new technology because it's the new technology that is constantly changing. The
Mhm.
the the fundamentals are still there. You still have to know how to write. You still have to know how to reach an audience with an effective message, but you really need to know what the latest and the greatest technology is, because that's
Hmm.
what you're going to be using. So you have to try to stay ahead of that, and that's challenging.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of challenges that arise out of this whole new technology of AI. And but there's also not only challenges, but opportunities. Do you want to? I know you started to talk about some of the challenges, but talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that students, or, once they graduate, will actually be part of.
Hmm. Well, I think students, if students take advantage of learning the technology that's out there, and in all of its various forms, all of the platforms that exist for social media, all of the platforms that exist to do office work, from Excel spreadsheets on, and the chat GPTs of the world that can help them actually create content. If they can master that before they graduate, they're going to be very valuable players, because it's the students who understand the digital media that are going to do the best. And not only understanding how to use it, but understanding how to get information back from it, so that if you can read algorithms, and if you can read, it's not asking you to know how to do the language of computers, but in other words, if I can dissect data that will help me understand my audiences, who they are, what are they listening to, what are they watching, what patterns exist when they go onto their phones and their laptops, in terms of how do they do searches, what search words come up in the search engines, and how do you optimize that. So all of those skills are really fundamentally important now, because ultimately that's where it's at. It's where business
Absolutely.
is.
Now, you said that you have been teaching for at least 14 years at Hofstra, and you also taught at other schools before that. Have you seen a trend, or any type of similarity between the students when you first started and the students today?
Well, there's really two big answers to that. And I'll start with the slightly negative side, but I'll always like to lead with a positive, because I'm a PR person. Um, but on the negative side, I think, and you hear teachers talk about this from every level, from the kindergartners through 12, and then into school. I think the two things have happened that have changed students a bit, that have made them less self-reliant and more demanding when it comes to essentially being told what to do, to have their hands held, to really have more structure. It's because, first of all, in as they were growing up, um, there was this emphasis, and I can speak to it because I have four grown children now, and I remember how the emphasis was always on uh, self. Not self-importance is the wrong word, but the idea that you had value as a student, and everybody gets a prize, and everybody gets
Mm-hmm.
praise, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody, and don't insult anybody, because it's self-esteem is the word I was looking for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Self-esteem was a very big thing, which is why everybody gets a trophy at the end of the season, even if you were the losing team. Because why should anybody be disappointed and walk away without a trophy? Well, you have that kind of an attitude sometimes in the classroom now, where, well, how am I not getting an A? Well, I
Yeah.
deserve an A, but did you work for the A? But I've always gotten A's in the past. Well, no, that's not how this works. And so there's some issues with that, because they are definitely not as critically as able to critically think, because they have so much structure, and they had so much structure as children, that they don't know how to think out of the box. They don't know how to think creatively. They just want to be told what to do. A student panics now when I say, write an essay answering these two questions, because they want to know, how many words should it be? How many pages should it be? If I don't tell them, they don't know what to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
just say, just answer the question. You can answer it any way you want. That
Mm-hmm.
bothers them, because they
Mm-hmm.
want the structure.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, that's a good thing sometimes. but sometimes you do have to think out of the box, and you do have to be able to say, well, I'm going to answer this my way, not the way the teacher wants it. And
Right.
sometimes and I'll respect that if you answer the question. But So that's a little bit concerning. And of course, with the pandemic, the other part of this is that there's less socialization, and
Mm.
you can see that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I walk into a classroom now and no one's talking to anybody. They're
Mm-hmm.
all in their phones waiting
Mm-hmm.
for me to arrive, and there's no conversation in the classroom. And I'm finding that carries over into during class time. Fewer
Mm-hmm.
and fewer students are engaged.
Mm-hmm.
They're not they may be listening. I'm not sure if they are, but they're not speaking up.
Right.
They're not because they're afraid for some reason of being wrong. It's okay to be wrong in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I tell them. There are no wrong answers. We're here to learn from each other,
Mm-hmm.
even if we make mistakes.
Right.
So that's what I'm finding is different. What I'm finding is the same though is, uh, and I can't speak for every major in every school and every university, but I find the students that I'm with have always been very directed. They kind of know where they want to go and they work at it. They're not lazy like some
Mm-hmm.
people portray them to be.
Mm-hmm.
They're not lazy people, and unfortunately, they get that rap sometimes that this generation doesn't, is lazy, wants everything handed to them. I don't find that. I find that the ones who are here are engaged and they want to work, they want to get experience, they want to be prepared for the workplace. It's a little bit harder for them because of the circumstances I just described, but they still want that. They still want that to get to that goal. They still have the same objectives.
Yeah, agree. All right, before we move on, I just have to say I'm so appreciative of our sponsors and must take this time out to thank them. Please support our sponsors and tell them that you heard about them on Hilary Topper on Air. Special thanks to the Russo Law Group, Long Island Signature Estate Planning, Elder Law, and Special Needs Law Firm, and Buddha Bath, a natural bath and body care company that offers a wide variety of products, including body butter, bath bombs, soap bars, and sugar scrubs. Now back to you, Jeff. So, as a faculty advisor for Hofstra's PRSSA, what opportunities and experiences do you provide for students interested in pursuing careers in PR?
Well, I think the number one answer to that is networking. And, you have been a champion networker all your life, and I'm a strong believer in the value of networking. I really feel that, I mean, even my own experience, I don't think I ever, aside from the job I have now, I never got a job that I was just one of the applicants for that I answered an ad. Almost every job I've had, and especially when I was a consultant, came from the network I had created, the people who I knew, who knew me, impressions I made, and vice versa. So I think the value of knowing people who have influence, who are in a position to give you an internship, to give you a job, or just to mentor you, to give you advice, is really where a PRSSA plays its largest role. And bringing alumni and professionals to the campus or going into New York, the media capital of the world, and introducing students to people there. That's the primary value, and the secondary value is the programs themselves, where a well-run PRSSA chapter, I feel that we have one here at Hofstra, will create programs on different topics related to the public relations profession, so students can go and listen to an expert, ask questions, and have a conversation about what those fields entail and what they should be prepared for. So those are the two main things. And of course, just the relationships they develop with each other, because those are also people who may be their future employers or colleagues or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So I think all of that is very valuable. And I think students who don't join organizations like that while they're at college
Mm-hmm.
and universities are missing something. They really miss out. It really enhances the whole experience, and it enhances your opportunities.
As we're talking about this, I want to ask you also about Hofstra in LA. Can you talk about some of these different programs that the Masters in Public Relations at Hofstra offers students in addition to an amazing education?
Well, right. One of the goals I've always had as a teacher here, and my colleagues feel the same way, is classroom experience and learning is obviously fundamental to the experience. But m- as important, if not more important, sometimes is getting out of the classroom and learning from professionals in one format or another. One of the things that our program specific to the School of Communication offered is these study away programs. You mentioned Hofstra in LA for the last 10 years. Hofstra's been taking a group of students, usually 20 or so students, to Los Angeles in January during the winter session, the break, for an experiential immersion in the industry out in Hollywood. And that goes for both sides, the public relations industry, which really there is more in the form of agents and those who publicize the industry, movies and television and et cetera. And of course, the production side. So that's an interesting program. By the way, you may not know this, is about to convert to a semester-long program. So you can spend
Wow.
a semester in Los Angeles, take Hofstra classes out there, have an internship out there, and earn 15 credits while you're away. And rather than being a semester abroad, you're a semester on the West Coast, but same
Mhm.
idea. We do a similar program in New York City, believe it or not, and that's a program I run. We just call it Hofstra in New York City, and it's a week in June where we do the same thing. We immerse ourselves in the New York media. We go to film studios and television news studios, and we meet with PR agencies and people along those lines. And we're going to be going to a couple of landmarks, but when I say landmarks, we go to the Empire State Building, for example. The Empire State Building is a brand new multimedia museum that they built on the first floor, which is fabulous. If you haven't had a chance to see it, you should go. But what it shows to students is you may think you're going to be a producer of movies or programs. You think you're going to be a writer of articles for a newspaper or maybe a publicist for an actor. There are those kinds of jobs within the museum industry, within the museum world, because content has to be created. And now, with all the museums being as interactive as they are, a lot of that content is on video and has to be produced and written and edited and all that sort of thing. And of course, publicized. So, we try to mix a lot of different types of professions into these programs. We do a similar program in Cuba, which is a bit different, of course. Their media in Cuba is a lot different than here. We do a program in Rome, and that's a month. We do a month in Rome during June, which I was able to do that trip once. Marvelous trip. So students have those opportunities, whether they're graduate students or undergraduate students, within our programs.
So we're going to switch gears right now. I think that everybody who knows you knows you love the Beatles. And I want to ask you, how has their music influenced your perspective on communication and storytelling?
Well, I'm glad you asked me. That was a fab question from a fab lady. Um, I will tell you this, I joke that the reason I came here 14 years ago was so I could do a class around the Beatles. And actually, what I've done is I've created a course around rock and pop music.
Mhm.
I call it Rock, Pop, and PR. And the Beatles are the center of the course because there are tremendous numbers of case studies just first within the Beatles and then within the pop world, the pop music world, of public relations disasters, public relations controversies, controversies that these entertainers get themselves into, or sometimes their art creates controversy, whether it's a song that about a particular topic or a video that they put out. So there's a lot of PR lessons to be learned there. And the Beatles are a great microcosm of all of that, from the very beginning when they were thrust into the world in their nice suits and their cute haircuts, and this Beatlemania, which has yet to be equaled since, takes over, and all of the publicity and all of the things that went along with that. To okay, now you're the biggest stars in the world. Now it's time to start making PR mistakes, like when John Lennon offhand tells a reporter that the Beatles are now bigger than Jesus. Well, all kinds of controversy ensued after that. And what I do in class is I say, okay, we watched the press conference when he tried to respond to it, and he was so awkward and unprepared. And I say, if this happened now, what would this press conference look like, or what would the response look like, rather than the way they did it. So there's all kinds of lessons to be learned within the framework of the Beatles history, as well as the whole entire pop and rock world. So
That's
I love
great.
that. So it's a lot
Yeah,
of fun to do that.
that is. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So now we have to wrap this up. I want to find out from you how our listeners can get in touch with you, learn more about the program, and about you.
Okay. Well, I will have to spell my name if you want to look me up, but I'll do that in the form of my email address. So my email address is Jeffrey, Jeffrey, dot Morosoff at hofstra.edu. And you can plug my name into a search and it'll come up. My Hofstra bio will be there and the whole program will be there too, if you're looking for information about the program. But you can always email me at that address and I'll be happy to respond.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff, for being on the show. I also want to thank our sponsors once more, the Russo Law Group, PC, Long Island Signature Estate Planning, Elder Law, and Special Needs Law Firm. For more information, visit vjrussolaw.com. And Buddha Bath, a natural bath and body care company. For more information, visit buddhabath.net. And last but not least, I want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. If you want more information on this show or any other show, visit our website at hilarytopper.com, or you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Alexa. You name it, we're out there. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.